I'm here with Wrigley, who is a bit of an anxious dog. In this video, I'm going to go over some tips you can use if your dog is reactive to other dogs, which Wrigley is. Now, Wrigley has moved around to a couple different places, and Wrigley's got, I can tell Wrigley has cortisol in her blood because we call it efficiency of movement. She snaps her head around, she's really jumpy and jittery in certain situations. Now, the family installed an invisible fence. I'm really not a big fan, Wrigley, of any sort of aversive form of training. Shot collars fall into that line. And Wrigley is a great example because a lot of dogs just learn to run past it. Now I didn't, but the guardians here moved from a place where there weren't as many kids. We're right next to a school. So there's a ton of kids that are coming by. There's a lot of dogs that walk by. I think that she thinks that part of how she contributes to the pack is by contributing to the pack, by helping with protection. But I think at the same time, the humans have inadvertently, and a very common thing, a lot of people do this, is they put their dog in a position where the dog thinks it's in charge, but the humans don't listen to the dog, so that causes the dog frustration, stress, anxiety, and that can lead to aggression. And I don't think she's aggressive, I think she's fearful and she's trying to defend her area, and these dogs keep on walking by. So she will run through the electricity fence and has gone after a couple dogs. Luckily it hasn't been too bad, but that's why the guardian's here. Now, we can do a couple things. And I haven't even seen, we have another dog, I should say, in front of the house. We have arranged to have it here. I haven't seen how she's reacting around other dogs, so this is gonna be new for me. We wanna make sure that when we're doing this, we have a good tool. We wanna have a collar the dog cannot slip out of. If you're unsure, you wanna get a harness or something that is secure, or a martingale collar is one of my preferences. Now, I might do a little something called BAT training, which is behavior adjustment training, which we help her practice being around another dog without reacting. I may also do something called click for looks, where I'm going to create a positive association for her if she simply looks at the other dog. Right now, we're going to go and meet the other dog. Now, when your dog is reactive, it is hysterical. It is not going to hear anything. It's not going to learn anything. So if your dog is ever reactive, the best and only thing you can do is increase the distance. So I'm going to have the guardian kind of follow us, and we're going to stop, and then she's going to turn around and walk backwards for part of the way. And so you can kind of be shooting when she still sees it. So I'd like you to be able to see your dog and what's the other dog's name again?
Walter.
Walter at the same time. And so I'm gonna try to manage enough distance. We're gonna see if we can get her to kind of hang out relaxed around Walter. All right, let's go and see how it goes. Come on, Wrigley. Now, when you're doing this sort of thing, make sure that you're not doing it with other things that are contributing factors. If somebody's mowing the lawn next door, that might not be good. If there's a kid screaming across the way, that might also be a contributing factor. All right, so there's Walter. She hasn't seen Walter yet. Let's see how you're gonna behave. I wanna keep the leash nice and loose. See how she got stiff and still? She's staring at, but her tail looks okay. Her ears look good. Dogs are normally, though, wiggly and jiggly. So if you see a dog going from wiggly and jiggly to stiff and still, that's an indication, that's a warning to the other dog, I don't like what you're doing. Now, she is stiff and she's pointed directly at him. Walter's actually doing a great thing because he's got his butt towards her. Now, she can go, but she can't pull me there. Wrigley. So I'm rewarding her from going away from the other dog. And I asked her to do it just with a little bit of a kiss. There we go. And she's more interested in me and the other dog because we have some good distance. As we get closer, that might change. Now, I want to let her go, but one thing to be careful of, dogs have a fight or flight response. Come. So if you keep the leash really tense like this, anxiety can travel down the leash if I'm anxious. Also, that can make the dog feel trapped, and then I have to fight instead of flight. So normally, she's not too wild about Walter, right?
Yeah, I mean, not like.
Now the tail wagging is not necessarily an indication of happiness. It really means more excitement. We're going to ask you to hold on a sec, buddy. This is her buddy. They share yards.
Windsor.
Hey, can you call Windsor, buddy? Can you call Windsor over there? Now see right there, the guardian, she instinctively went like this and she's putting a little tension on the leash. Now it's a very normal reaction.
Okay.
It's a human reaction. We do that, we're just preparing ourselves. But that tension can cause the dog to feel that the human's uncomfortable, and that can actually be an influencer. What's his name?
Can you call Windsor, Lacey?
No. What's his name?
Walter. Oh, Nash.
Nash. Hey Nash, can you take this treat? Touch it to Walter's nose, but don't give it to him. Touch his nose. Just touch his nose. Walter's nose. There, or Mom could do that. Thank you, Mom. All right. So Walter's a buddy. We like that, but at the same time, we want to kind of see how this interaction is going. So we're seeing we have nice little body language.
Sorry.
That's okay.
That's okay.
So we have a little bit of tension, and so that manifests a little bit. That happens. There we go. So, all right, and a growl, like I talked about off camera, is not aggression. So we shouldn't ever correct a dog for growling. It's saying, I didn't like you in my space. I don't want you licking my junk. I don't want you sniffing my butt, or whatever the case may be. Now, I call this a hang and jay. I want to see this sort of looseness in the leash. If it's like this, the dog's probably uncomfortable, or I'm adding tension to it. Now, you see the ears are kind of oscillating for you coming forward and to the back. Perfect example right there. Now I'm going to go, now for bat training, behavior adjustment training, what we want the dog to do is practice being around another dog while it's calm. And I'm allowing this because the energy didn't pull. Now face to face is very difficult for dog greetings. It should be sideways like a T. Yep.
He's kind of a bad example too.
That's okay. You don't know, the world's not full of perfect people.
Yeah.
But this dog laying down, Walter laying down, is an indication I feel comfortable. If you're about to get mugged, you don't like lay down. So that's an indication. And if he's comfortable, he can read Wrigley's body language much better than we ever will be able to. So if we can facilitate a nice greeting like this, we want to build good things up on top of good things. Go ahead and pet him a little bit if you want. Or, excuse me, every Wrigley I've known has been a boy, so he's my first girl Wrigley. But see what she's doing? She's not staring at him. She's not stiff. She's not snapping her head around or jittery. She's kind of like, I'm indifferent to Walter, which is kind of what we're looking for. Now, we're not buddies with everybody we meet. Wrigley. All right, so now I'm going to go over something. Now, bat training is essentially where you would find a helper dog like this. You would go to a park or somewhere, and really, it's kind of hard for me it's not hard, but when I do it, it's almost weird because it doesn't feel like I'm doing anything. What we're helping the dog do is practice being around another dog without reacting to the other dog. I should mention that Bat was a woman named Grisha Stewart who came up with it, and she has a book called Bat 2.0, which is a wonderfully easy book to read. And so what it is you kind of let the dog wander around wherever it wants. We have a leash to keep it out of trouble. We call it away if it's going to get into trouble. But besides that, this is what we want the dog to do is sniff, engage with the other dog, see the tail, ears look good, the body doesn't look stiff, there's no held breathing. Walter's not 100%, so he kind of turned a little bit. And that was very good. All right, so bat training is something that we might need to set up as we create these stage setups. What we typically do in life is we just walk out, we put the dog in a basket, in a jackpot situation, we wonder why it freaks out. Well, it wasn't prepared for that. So if you have the other dog in on it with you and you're in a huge park with plenty of room, right now this is his territory or her territory, so she sometimes get defensive about their territory, and I think that's absolutely a factor here. Now, a couple other things you can do, and then I'm going to go over something I call click for looks, is taking the dogs for a walk together. Most of the time, the only interaction that Wrigley has with the other dog is barking at it. Barking at it causes the other dog to leave, so she thinks that she made him leave, and so she's not having a positive engagement. She's saying, I bark at them and they go away. So if we can actually walk her with another dog, she has a common bond, and I gotta watch this just to make sure that nothing goes bad. But we want to develop a positive association. That's wonderful. Anytime a dog wants to use his nose and sniff, that's what we're looking for. And Walter's just growled a little bit and bared his teeth. And he's not being aggressive. He's saying, give me a little bit of space. Now, if she comes away, we want to reward that. Whoops. And say come or whatever it is right before the treat goes in her mouth. So anytime she disengages for another dog and comes back to you, make sure you reward that because that's a really positive thing. All right, so now for click for looks, I'm going to use a clicker for this. And I'm going to show you, and basically, well, let me finish up Pat. So what we want to do, or for walking. So if there are dogs that walk by and you know she's reacted to, next time they walk by, see if you can leave her in the house and just ask them, hey, do you guys always walk at 5:30? Our dog sometimes is a little bit insecure about other dogs. Would you mind if we walked with you tomorrow? So then they give them a number, they text you, and you're like maybe outside waiting on the other side of the street or have them on the other side of the street. As soon as they get there, what we want to do is we want to go walking. So the dog is here, I'm here, the other dog is here. So we're all kind of in a line this way. We don't have one dog in front or one dog behind because that creates a little bit of a competition. That's all right. Try. All right, so basically that way we build a positive association. Last time I saw that dog, we got to go for a walk. I like walking. That dog's presence means that I get to go for a walk. And we have enough distance where Wrigley's not reacting. Now, first what we call is parallel walking. First we're gonna walk like this, but eventually we're gonna kind of start getting closer together where it's human, human, dog, dog. And eventually we're walking them together, and every time the other dog shows up, instead of barking at that dog, we gotta go for a little bit of a walk, and then we come back to my house, and then I get to sniff the dog, or whatever level of stuff we can do, and they go away. Now let's say the dog, you can't walk. There's just no distance you can get. Well, there should theoretically be a distance where you can get. Remember, always increase the distance if your dog's reactive. So what I'm gonna do now, come here, sweetheart. Let's come over here. Is something I call click for looks, where we're basically just gonna give the dog a treat every time she looks at Walter. She doesn't know that that's what I want. So I'm gonna use the click, and she's a little bit fearful of the click, so I'm gonna put it behind my back. Walter. She's not gonna know how to do this. Walter. At first it's accidental. But after a while, Walter. So now looking at Walter gets me a treat. Saw how she just darted, but she didn't look the direction I wanted. Walter. Now, if you don't know the other dog, I would just say friendly or amigo or some word that means like something like that. Walter. So you saw at first, the first couple were very sporadic. Now it's like going boom, 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 boom. She's staring at me like, why aren't you giving me one? So this is a little bit of operant conditioning, so she gets to control it. Walter. So when she looks at him, something good happens. Walter. And she doesn't have to engage with them. She's sitting, so she doesn't have to sit for this, but that's a good indication she's comfortable. So what you want to do is eventually, and your house is actually really well set up. We're not going to show it for privacy purposes, but we have two houses together. So if you're practicing this like maybe 10 steps from your backyard in the middle of the houses, it's kind of a channel. So she's only going to have a short period of time that she's going to see those dogs walking by. I'm assuming if you're like most neighborhoods, probably like 4:30 to 5:30 is a pretty busy walking time. Everybody comes home from work. So what we want to do, we want to exercise our dog first to set her up for success like we talked about off camera. Then we go over there, we have our clicker with us. We've already primed the clicker. And every time and you have somebody out here who's a spotter. Or, so you're, okay, somebody's coming. So now you're turned your attention down here. And as soon as she looks, and so see, she's looking at my hand, so I'm gonna put it behind my back. And as soon as she looks at the other dog, friendly. Now at first, it's as soon as she looks at the other dog, I'm clicking and I'm giving the treat pretty fast. And eventually I'm gonna go like this. Friendly. I'm gonna start elongating that. So dogs have something called the cutoff signal. So if I'm a dog and the camera's the dog and I don't like that other dog, I might look away. That's my way of saying, hey man, back off or give me some space. And I'm disengaging, kind of like what girls do to me when I might take them out on dates. So basically what we want the dog to do is disengage with the other dog. Instead of barking and then the other dog leaving and thinking that barking made them leave, looking away from them makes the other dog leave. Now eventually we'd like to gradually collapse the distance. So let's say that we're 5 paces past the edge of your house, standing there, and we wait for the person to come, and as soon as she sees it, we click. When she looks at it, we give a treat and say amigo, and she might look again, we might get another click. But eventually you start elongating this, and pretty much, then she watches the dog, and then you click right as it's about to go out of sight, and then she looks up at you and you give her the treat. So now we're causing her to look at the other dog because she's not engaging, she's not reacting. So then after we get to the point where any dog can pass by and she's like, pretty much she sees the dog and looks away and looks up at you, which will eventually happen, then you can take one step closer and practice it one step closer to the front of the house. So it'll take you several practice sessions, but eventually it'll be here and dogs will be walking by and she's like, I look at a dog, I keep on looking, and then I eventually look away and I get a treat. Now you can vary how long the dog looks at the other dog, but use your gut. We have instincts for a reason. If your gut tells you that she's not looking in a positive way, stop it, increase the distance. We don't want her to stare, a lot of times staring too long and then they're gonna lunge. So we've got kind of a medley of things here in this video, but this is a really good greeting because we set her up for success. Now she's also been in the backyard for 2.5 hours listening to me talk, so I think she has had some energy depleted. But we're gonna go ahead and excuse Walter here in a second, but walking her and Walter together And you might have to marry these things. You might have to do first click for looks until you're eventually allowed here and she can watch the dog walk by. Then you're like, hey, next time you come by, let's go for a walk together. And you might have to have them on the other side of the street and you're here, but gradually get closer and closer until you're shoulder to shoulder. Now the dogs are gonna hang out. They get to see each other, they get to smell each other, they get to look at each other, they get to hear each other, but they don't have the pressure of actually interacting. And then if you see one of them wants to sniff the other one and the body is nice and loose and relaxed and you feel comfortable with it, you can do that. Make sure there's not having tension on the leash, keep the leash nice and loose. And even if everything's okay, have her practice calling away. So I'm gonna show you right here one more time. Come on, come on. You don't wanna go over there? Come here. So that tells me that she's got a little bit of uncertainty. If she ever says that she's uncomfortable, don't ever force it. A lot of times we're like, but I won't be able to practice for another day. We gotta do it, let's go. You're just gonna practice her saying that they're not listening to you. Now you can also do things like this and throw a treat towards the other dog, but you have to be careful. This can cause her to become territorial or the other dog to get territorial if the dog is very treat aggressive or reactive. But it's a nice way to get the dog to come forward. Yeah, I see it. Without forcing or punishing the dog. Let's see if we can get you close to Walter one more time. Sure, sweetheart. And also watch the tail. So that stiffness, see the body is low and stiff and the breathing, tail, all these are indications I don't feel fully comfortable with this. So I'm not gonna push any further than this. And sniffing the ground is a wonderful thing. We like that. So we'll do one good little sniff for Walter. Very good. Sit. Well, this is Wrigley. That's Walter. I'm David. And these are some tips and tricks you can use if you have a dog that's reactive or uncertain to be around other dogs.